Welcome back for part 2 of sealing the tub surround. Alright, so I'm out here in the garage. I'm mixing up some thin set now. So in the previous video I talked about this thin set. This is Pro Light by Custom Building Products. And it is a very versatile thin set. You can use it with ceramic, porcelain, stone, glass, large format tile. You can see right here, premium large format, but it's very versatile. So I don't need much of it. I'm going to guess probably less than a pound maybe. Now this is a 30-pound bag right here, which is the other thing I like about this thin set. It's very lightweight versus a typical bag of thin set that's about 50 pounds. So I'm going to take some of that, put it in this mud pan here, then we'll mix it up. And the ratios on this Pro Light, it's 5.75 to 6 quarts of water per bag. So if my math is correct, 1 pound of this thin set needs around about 6 ounces of water, so less than a cup of water. Alright, so as I talk about on these projects, I like to make sure I'm protected if I'm going to be doing these DIY projects myself. So I've got gloves on, these are nitrile. Then I've got an N95 mask on. I don't want to breathe this stuff at all. And I've also got some goggles here for my eyes. So I'm going to cut this bag open. This bag actually was damaged in the store, so I got it 50% off because it was the last one left. Alright, so I'm getting very scientific here because I don't really know what this looks like when it's mixed up correctly. But it should mix to about a paste-like consistency. So I'm going to go ahead and I've got my pan here, I've got it on the scale. I'm going to zero this out. And I'm going to add some thin set in that pan. Just going to use my little pointing trowel here. Alright, so there's 16.5 ounces. So I think I'm going to need more than that. So I'm going to mix up a little bit more. I think I'm going to go to 1.5 pounds in this, just so I don't overflow this here. So I'm going to put in about 6 ounces of water. Start out with that first. Add a little bit more. Pour that in. I need more water, I think. Add a little bit more water, I think. Alright, so I'm going to let this set up for about 5 to 10 minutes, and then we'll come back and stir it again, and then apply it in the bathroom. Alright, so I've let this set up for about 5 minutes, and it's stiffening up a little bit. I'm going to stir it again. Looks pretty good. I'm going to use this knife here. This is I think it's a 4-inch knife. Small little flexible putty knife, just in case. And I've got this finishing trowel. I haven't bought any tile trowels yet, so I'm going to use this today. This is going to be used more or less to spread the thin set out. Be careful of that corner there too. Okay, I don't want to work it too long either. I want to keep moving. It appears some footage is missing. I believe I hit the button on my camera to stop recording instead of starting, so only the top half of the tub surround is viewable. But I think you get the gist here. So yeah, the little putty knife here seems to be working pretty well in the corners. Just putting on just a little bit there. Now I'm trying to get it on the edge of the putty knife, so that it falls right in the corner. So I'm just dropping it in the corner and just kind of pulling to the right at an angle. It seems to be working pretty well. Alright, so I'm going to finish up this seam back here. Apply some first. Still not quite right. So I'm going to play with this some more. I think I've got the hang of it though, but that should be looking pretty good hopefully when I'm done here. Off camera, I covered imperfections in the Durock around the window with thin set and applied some thin set over the mesh tape in the inside corners. Alright, so I've got the area around the window all done. What I'm going to do now, start filling in all the screw holes over here. These ones where I reposition the screws. I'm going to fill those in. And I think that is going to be it. And a couple chips back over here on the other side. That should be it. So after several attempts, I finally got the hang of spreading the thin set, and it seems to have turned out pretty well. And I guess the only thing left for me here is to actually clean up all my tools before this starts to harden up. So I'm going to take care of that next. Alright, so I apologize if the lighting was a little bit off in previous parts of this video, and that's because I had some issues with the exposure and this window, the light coming through the window. So I've covered that up, and what I'm going to do now is actually go around and kind of scrape off various areas where there may be some high spots. So like over here, I'm just going to kind of feather this out with the 4-inch knife here. I'm going to be very careful in the corners, not to hurt the corners, but I just want to knock this down a little bit before we start putting in the waterproofing membrane. So right over here in the corner, for example, I'm not going to come in this way. I'm going to come in at an angle like this though, and scrape downward. So I've got a mask on once again because this is dry at this point, so I don't want to be breathing this. Alright, so that's going to be about it on that. That was pretty quick. Alright, so before I apply the liquid membrane, what I'm going to do first is clean this area up. I want to have this board, all this thin set and everything nice and clean without a lot of dust in here. So I'm going to grab the vacuum and just kind of vacuum around it first, and then I'll proceed from there. Alright, so I've got a sponge here in a bucket. I don't have a 5-gallon bucket. The bucket I have has a hole in it, so I'm using this little paint bucket here. So this is the sponge, one of these larger sponges. So I'm going to go around the whole tub surround and just kind of wipe things down. I want to make sure this sponge is not too damp. I just want it wet enough to get all the dust that might be on here off. Alright, so that should be good enough. We're going to come back. I'm going to let this dry for a minute. Come back and then we'll start putting on the liquid membrane. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is spread some of this Laticrete Hydroban liquid membrane. Red Guard is also available in the stores. You can buy something like that. That's a pretty popular product to put over these backer boards. Now I don't need to cover the whole backer board because again, the DensShield has the membrane, so to speak, incorporated in it already. So we don't need to worry about that. But anywhere there's exposed thin set, where there's screws that I covered with the adhesive and sealant, I'm going to actually put the hydro. Also around the window, because we have cement board up here, I'm going to put some of that around the window, cover that whole board with this Hydroban. There is another product by Laticrete called Hydro Barrier. The difference between those two products, this one's actually more expensive. So in the corners you don't need any sort of a fabric with the Hydroban, but with the Hydro Barrier you actually need fabric. So this is some of that fabric here. Now I got this from a YouTuber called Tile Master GA. So if you want to check out his channel, you can do that. This was years ago when I bought this, when I was first looking at doing this bathroom project. But they have all sorts of these fabrics out there you can buy. So you probably saw I did a video on a bunch of tapes, and that included the Fiberfuse. And it looks a lot like this. I called to ask about Fiberfuse, called their tech support, and they told me that they did not feel confident recommending the Fiberfuse to be used with a liquid membrane. So I decided not to do that. Now, the one thing about the Hydroban that I'm most concerned about is this area down here, around the tub, where the tub lip is. That's my most vulnerable spot. But we've got a lot of adhesive and sealant in there. There are no gaps whatsoever in there, so I'm just going to go right back over that area. The Hydroban should cover gaps up to about 1/8 of an inch wide. Now, the Hydroban, you can also use that with a roller or a brush. They recommend a heavy nap roller. So this is a heavy nap roller right there. The 4-inch is not really heavy nap. I don't have any 4-inch heavy nap rollers, so I'm just going to try and see if this works. If this doesn't work very well, I'm going to switch over to this one. That's what it looks like. So one reason why I decided to use Hydroban versus using a Red Guard is because Red Guard goes on really dark, and if I would need to draw any sort of lines or anything like that when I set tile, then I won't be able to see those lines quite as easily as I will with this stuff here. This dries to about an olive color, so this will be a little bit easier to work with in terms of visibility on the wall. Okay, so it does have a slight odor to it. You may want to open a window or something, but it doesn't smell too bad. I'm going to spread it on first of all with a brush. Try that in this small area here. Then I'm going to try to work the fabric in on top of the Hydroban. You're supposed to put 2 layers of the Hydroban on when you do this. I was going to use fabric to cover the tub lip to backer board transition, but my tub's lip is very small and recessed back of the face of the board. And this makes it a bit tougher to get the fabric to stay in place. I probably could have used some of the Hydroban adhesive and sealant to hold the fabric in place, then gone over it with Hydroban liquid membrane after it dried, but I decided not to do so. Seems to cover fairly well. It almost goes on like paint, it seems like. So down the side, I'm going to go over here too in the corner. Make sure that's covered up. Okay, so I think the tub surround looks good. Okay, so there is our first layer of Hydroban on there around the tub. I'm going to call that good. Okay, I'm going to stay away from this part of the board because we're going to be probably mudding and taping over here. So I'm going to stay away from this part here. Alright, so this is very repetitive. I'm going to go around the whole thing and then I will talk about this window once we get to that area. Alright, so I got a lot of this done. I just started using the brush. That seemed to work a lot better than a roller. Using the combination of the two also worked fairly well, but ultimately the brush was a lot better. Around the window I've got some tape here to kind of tape off the frame so I don't get a bunch of the hydro band on the frame. So I've got that taped off. I'm just going to go ahead and coat this whole area here. And then over here on the niche, I am actually going to just coat the edges here, and that should be good enough. Yeah, with the brush I can put it on nice and thick too. That's why I like using the brush. So this edge over here, I'm going to be very careful because I really don't want to put anything here just yet. I think we're going to be putting thinset on this area and then tiling over that. So I don't want to do anything just yet on this part here. So I'm going to take a quick look at the boards here. I think we're okay here. I think we're done. Alright, so for the pipes, the pipe openings in the wall, you can also use this for that. So you just put the pipe in and then just kind of run this around that. There is also the Schluter pipe sealers you can use, but I've also sealed the board up with some Laticrete Hydroband adhesive and sealant, so we shouldn't have any sort of problems with the board getting wet and then having that kind of degrade over time. Okay, so for right now I'm going to go ahead and let this dry and then I'll come back and put a second coat on. Right, so I've got the second coat of Hydroband on. I may put a third coat around the tub lip here just to make sure that is sealed up. The second coat probably is good enough. And that second coat went on pretty thick, so I don't think I'm going to have any issues at all. And so the back wall's all done, niche is all done, window's all done. And everything looks nice and sealed up. Alright, so there you have it. There's sealing the tub surround in the bathroom. And I did not cover sealing the transition from the backerboard material to the drywall on the ceiling and at the walls here. So we'll talk about that in the next video. So I have several scenarios we're going to walk through, and hopefully one of those scenarios will apply to your situation and will help you out with your project. So hopefully this information was helpful, and thanks for watching. See links in the description below. Comment, like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to check us out on social media. And thanks for watching.